known across the country, and he has carved out a niche for himself based on his selfless giving to Canadians, to those in need. Certainly, from a military perspective, we could talk about his career, starting with a great reserve regiment, the Lawrence Scots Peel, Dufferin, and Halton Regiment, in about 1994, I believe, Jody, when you're around 17 years of age.
Yes, sir.
And then transferring over to the regular force about 2 or 3 years later. So he came from great roots, the Lawrence Scots, into a great regiment, the Royal Canadian Regiment. But it's what he brought himself, his perseverance and his own leadership, that was recognized at such an early age, that really stood out, and it has made him what he is now, which is a great counselor, winning more than double what anyone else won in votes in the Ward 2 Innis election a couple of years back, and all the different committees and his roles, the expanded roles in the city of Ottawa, is just testament to how people in that community now see his leadership. Then we need to look at how he has taken things like the Amazing Race with his younger brother, or any of the other activities such as founding Never Quit, and he has just brought them to the next level. He has never quit anything. His 1.5 Army Marathon, when you saw him do that, you could see the kind of fortitude he has. He is supported by a wonderful family. His wife is a retired Army medic, a true warrior and accomplished medic in her own right, too. And the story of how they met is just heartwarming. You know, I'll just sum up here because I know we want to see Jody speak. But let me tell you that from a personal perspective, Jody Mitic makes me proud to be a Royal Canadian, and he makes me proud to be a Canadian. And I think that we have great things in his future as a leader in Canada, not the least of which is what he's doing for the city of Ottawa right now. So thank you very much, Jody.
Sir, you humble me. Had a lot of help along the way, not the least of which was the regiment itself, and the fine soldiers and the fine royal that we both served with. So the general, can everybody hear me first of all?
Give us a green check if you can hear Jody. Okay,
I got some check marks. Now I'm using a Mac, so according to the rules, I cannot see the text. And if Joanne or Margaret, if anything happens that I need to see in the text window, just let me know.
We will let you know.
And I'll open it up. So keep an eye on it for me. You know, guys, One more thing, Jody.
I just want to let you know that I passed you the ball so that you can change your own slides there on that triangle.
Yeah, I see that. Thanks. Okay, where was I? Okay, right. So I don't know what happened to my calendar. See, since, like the general said, since I've been elected to councillor, my life is not my own anymore. Much like a general, I'm sure, I'm pretty much told where to be, what to wear, what to bring, whose hand to shake when I get there. And somehow this week turned into what I like to call the Gong Show on repeat. and I'm going to be late for a big function that's happening right now, but this was so important to me that I didn't want to miss it. And it's really cool to be doing this because this is the future. We're doing things that are in the future here. This is technology that, you know, makes me excited to be alive in this time frame. So what I thought I would do, you need me to wait, whoever's phone that was? Everybody good? Okay. What I thought I would do to start is I would go through my presentation that I do when I'm giving a speech somewhere, and then we could talk about that a little bit because we have time for questions. So somebody preempted me a little bit. I believe you guys, the theme of my talk is never quit, because never quit became a bit of a mantra for me after I was wounded. And I don't use it like I never quit anything. I have quit tic-tac-toe when I got bored of it. I have, you know, I will quit shoveling the driveway and take a break. But never quit is something you can apply on your daily life when you're having a rough time, because it means even if it's taking one step, you're going to move forward that day. And that's how I treated it when I was wounded. But we'll talk about that. So even though you've already seen him, I want you to take a good look at the rugged, bearded, handsome warrior in the slide there, Mass Corporal Jody Mitic. Now, this picture was probably taken maybe 2 weeks before I was wounded, but it's probably one of the most favorite pictures of me from my time in the military because, frankly, I've never looked so badass. And, you know, in a world of professional tough guys, that's kind of important. If you look closely, how do I do my little arrow?
So your arrow's on the top left-hand side of the screen?
As more a rhetorical question.
Okay.
See that? See that tourniquet there? It's called an Israeli tourniquet, and that very tourniquet was used to save my life. Because in combat, when you're in combat, you carry the medical equipment for yourself. Your first aid kit is to be used on you in case you're wounded. Because if you use yours on a friend or a comrade, if you get zapped, then there's nothing there to treat you at the time. Now, of course, situations dictate if all the material is used up, of course you're going to whip it out to help save a friend. But the rule of the battlefield is that your first aid gear is to be used on you. So we always had at least 2 tourniquets each. There's another one on my inside my a pouch on my belt, and both of them were used, and then multiple others were used to stop the bleeding in my legs. But that Jody right there was feared by the Taliban, led some of the finest people I've ever met in my life. My sniper team worked with some of the greatest warriors I've ever known, but unfortunately he died. I like to say he started dying on the day that he stepped on a landmine. So that Jody really doesn't exist anymore, but, you know, goddamn, he's good looking. All right. I thought I'd introduce you to my team here. I know you can't see them that well. They like it that way. Some of them are still operational. So if you look at my cursor, you'll see that's my buddy B. That's his name. We don't know his real name. He probably crawled out from under a rock somewhere in the northern tundra, mostly sniper already. He's probably in my bedroom right now, keeping a close eye on me for the Queen and CSIS to make sure I don't break OPSEC. This is Senan, our wild Irishman. A bit of a problem in garrison where troops tend to get bored because there's not much to do, but solid, excellent guy to have at your side in the middle of a gunfight. But we would keep him in a glass case that said, "Do not break unless case of war." That's Steve. We called him Hollywood because as much as he loves to stand there looking tough guy with all the gear on, as soon as we snapped the picture, he took it all off and said, "Whew, that stuff's heavy." Dave, we mostly just called him Dave.
Jody, your pointer's not working.
It's not? Oh,
no.
I see it on my screen.
There we go. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So I see. Okay, sorry, my bad.
No, it's good.
B. Okay, so ready? I'm going to do it again. B. Senan, Hollywood, Dave. Dave's nickname was Sloaner because his last name is Sloan, and snipers are, if we're anything, we're definitely creative. This is Barry here, this fella here. He was my sniper team 2IC, which means second in command. And he is actually, our careers pretty much, we came in together as privates. We were fire team partners in Kosovo, which means we were a 2-man rifle team in our infantry section. And then we parted ways. He went and did the Ranger course and did some long-range patrol training. I went and did my recce course and sniper course. And then he came on, and we ended up working together again, and it was great. This is Cash. And Cash is Jamaican, so he was real good, man, because he takes everything easy. And I tend to get pretty wound up and excited. So he would take me down a notch, Jody, come on. And he's the only guy who wore glasses, which would make you think like he would have trouble seeing. But the real sniper job is not the sexy part where we're out there eliminating the enemy at long ranges with our rifles. The real job is to sit there patiently watching and passing information up on to people like the general so he can make strategic decisions on what's happening on the battlefield. We're information gatherers. We're watchers. and I would look through binoculars for 4 hours at a time and see almost nothing. Cash would put them to his eyes when it's his turn and go, "They're right there, man. Let's drop some bombs." And I couldn't figure it out because I didn't think he would be the guy to see as much as he did because he was wearing the glasses, but I learned to trust his instinct. This guy here is Gord. He trained me, and me and him did our master sniper course together. He's a great leader and a fine guy to have at your side in combat. And, of course, I am the tallest, best-looking, fittest one on the far left there. And if you look close, you can see this is Voodoo 5, the American Black Hawk helicopter that we were told would be our ride around the battlefield whenever we needed it. But I want you to take a real close look because when this picture was taken, it was the last time I ever saw it too. All right, so I threw this in because this is an American up-armored Humvee. And if you don't know, these things are almost, I would say, as tough as like World War II main battle tanks, which, you know, it doesn't sound tough because it's old, but for a Jeep, it's pretty tough. And unfortunately, the Green Beret team that was in this, when they hit it, they hit a double-stacked anti-tank mine. And because it was double-stacked and it was a Humvee, it cut it in half, killed the team leader who was in the passenger seat, and wounded everybody else that was in the vehicle. But mines are designed to do just that. They're not necessarily there to destroy things, more to disable things. So had it been a tank that had hit the anti-tank mine, probably would have blown off the tread. The crew would have been more or less okay. But that's the job of a mine, is to slow down the battlefield, is to throw a monkey wrench into the attackers, because a disabled tank and a wounded soldier are much more logistically a problem on the battlefield than dead or destroyed vehicles. So when I stepped on the anti-personnel landmine, which does the exact same thing, it's basically designed to blow off your foot, it did just that. And, you know, if you're killed instantly, you're there's a lot less hurry, there's not as much emphasis on getting, you know, your body out because, you know, you are passed already. So there's no real logistical problems. It's just a retrieval, but also the long term. So if you want to look at the Taliban, when they managed to get me, they eliminated a master sniper, a team leader, an active soldier, and an experienced guy in the regiment. And to this day, I'm costing the Queen and the Crown money. So very much a victory on their side in that kind of stuff. So anyway, we'll move on from that. This is a little bit of our terrain that we played in over there. If you look at this, this is a typical Afghan barn. We call it a grape drying hut because they literally dry grapes into raisins in them. But they double excellently as bunkers. And because the wall is about anywhere from 4 to 8 feet thick of compacted mud, makes a great show to shoot at it with machine guns and our 25 millimeter cannons on the lav. But you're not really doing much damage because it's such hard compacted mud. We learned the roofs were made out of sticks, and so what we would do is simply drop bombs through the roof, or we'd use a tank with an anti-tank round to actually punch holes through the wall, maybe an anti-tank missile as well. And these ditches and these walls make for excellent cover for the enemy when they would be moving through the battle space. And we actually had to get down where, like we are here, to, I keep forgetting that my pointer doesn't move unless I click it. We had to get down here into these areas rather than be up top. Snipers like to be up top and watch, and to actually track them and see what movement pattern they were using. So I know the general gave away a few parts of my story there, but I want you to pay particular attention to this good-looking blonde lady here, and we'll talk about her a little bit more later. So this is 2 of our sniper teams. We were 3-man teams, had combined to track down a large enemy force that was harassing our lines of defense along the road we were trying to build. We had built several strong points.
This guy?
they were being attacked on a regular basis. So the colonel asked us to track down where they were coming from and where they were doing their layup to attack the strong point. So we went out, combined 2 teams, made it a 6-man, basically reconnaissance team, but 6 pissed off snipers are probably one of the most effective battle tools you can put in your toolbox. So we went out, tracked them down, found them. Once we identified where they were preparing to attack the positions, our guys went out, did a counter ambush, and eliminated that enemy threat. But if you look down here, where my pointer is, this is the last picture of my real feet. And I like it because I'm wearing non-issue Army boots, which drove Sergeant Major crazy, but he let me get away with it because my feet were very tender, and you know, he wanted me to be an effective soldier on the battlefield. And so not long after this picture was taken is when I stepped on the landmine. And basically, we went out to do what we call an interdiction patrol. Everything's a patrol, by the way, if you don't know. I know there's probably some military folks listening, but for those that don't, even if you're standing still, you're technically on patrol. In the military, we call that a static patrol. Yeah, we're pretty clever. We can always make it sound like it's way more complicated than it is. And so an interdiction patrol is pretty much what it sounds like. We went out to interdict or intercept some enemy as they were fleeing our battle group as it advanced onto a village. And the village, we call it a soft knock. The battle group rolls up, stops at the edge of the village to allow the elders to come out and drink some tea and point out where the Taliban are. It makes it a lot better than going into the village guns blazing, because you're not going to make a lot of friends if you shoot up someone's neighborhood. And it gives the elders a chance to negotiate and tell you exactly where the Taliban are, because they don't want them in the village either. They'd rather do without them. And but the Taliban then have the opportunity to leave out the back door. So my sniper team and the recce platoon was asked to close that back door and track, eliminate, or detain as many of the enemy as we could get our hands on. So we deployed about 4 in the morning, no big deal, nothing we hadn't done, 100 times over the 6 months tour. Night vision, I was at the back, my boss Gord came along, so there was 4 of us instead of 3 of us. And as we were transitioning from a farmer's field up onto a trail in the village that we were going to use, I unfortunately stepped on a device. And the explosion immediately took my right foot, and the Taliban fellow that laid it was a little clever, and he had made in technical terms, an IED, improvised explosive device, by putting a mortar bomb underneath the mine. And when the secondary explosion went off, it shattered my left leg below the knee, and that's why my left foot had to be cut off as well. But it's one of those weird things where in the battlefield, there's all kinds of reasons why things happen and why things don't. A lot of it is just crazy dumb luck. And if the first guy in our patrol had stepped on that bomb, we don't know what would have happened. He definitely would have lost his feet. The guy behind him most definitely probably would have been killed, and perhaps the third and myself wounded, perhaps killed. We don't know. The way that the bomb actually went off is that the mine went up and the bomb went back in the direction that we had been moving. And if the guy in front of me had stepped on it, would have taken my head right off. And if someone had to step on a landmine that day, I was the best choice. Now, trust me, I wish I had stepped slightly left of that bomb, like my friends must have, because I thought we were walking in the same trail. But I don't think that way anymore, actually, because I feel like my life is actually better for what happened. So to make a long story short, because I know our time isn't as much as we would like, my job now is to survive, because we're a sniper team. We don't bring medics with us. Fun fact, the Canadian Armed Forces doesn't let their combat soldiers carry morphine onto the battlefield. Why? I don't know. To this day, I can't get a straight answer. But so we don't have any of that. But so extraction is going to be hard, or the rescue is going to be tough because we're snipers. We don't move in the open areas. We try to stick to the corners and stay sneaky. And I know this, and I know exactly where we are because it's my patrol. I was in charge, and so rescue is going to take a while. So now it's my job just to survive. So I'm doing my best to not go into shock and deal with the pain, which was excruciating. I wish I could describe it, but I've heard that the mind will block memories of extreme pain, and that's one of the reasons why I think women agree to have a second kid after the first one, because why else would they if they remembered how much it hurt to have the first one? And my friends right away went about saving my life, and I owe them a great debt. But at the same time, you know those helicopters with the basket on the side? Now, you don't have to answer me, but just imagine it. They lower it down through the trees if you're stuck on a mountain or something like that. Well, we didn't have one of those. So what we had to do was improvise. And the colonel, Colonel Lavoie, who's a great man, a great combat leader, he had to improvise, and he looked around at what he had around him because the safe landing zone was where he was, and he was on the Massamgar Forward Operating Base, a secure area. And so he had a combat bulldozer sitting there. It's basically a tank with a big bulldozer blade on the front. And we actually weren't that far away. We were only about 3 kilometers away, which doesn't sound like much, but through the Afghan Panjwai countryside, you know, in the dark, it could be 100. So he said, "Hey, could you get to Jody with your Badger right now?" And the Badger commander said, "Absolutely. Where is he?" Grid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I owe this fella my life because he stood up on his vehicle, took out his compass, set the bearing to where I was laying on the ground dying, and he said, "Driver, forward." And they drove that thing straight through everything in their path and basically plowed a road right to me and did it in about half an hour. So I don't know how many safety protocols they broke, but they got themselves there. And right behind that Badger was what we call a armored bison, which is a combat battlefield ambulance. And once they arrived, recce platoon had arrived in the meantime with a medic with them. They threw on about 4 more tourniquets per leg, gave me some morphine, which, by the way, doesn't work right away despite what you see in the movies. And then they loaded me onto the stretcher, put me into the ambulance, got me back to the landing zone, and got me back to Kandahar Airfield. This doctor did his work. When I came out from surgery, I was informed that I had, in fact, lost both my feet. And so I had a major decision to make. And, you know, I really decided that I was going to just soldier on. Soldier on is a saying that we have in the military that means, you know, work through it, get it done, you know, soldier on. And Soldier On is a program that they started not long after I was wounded, actually. And what it was meant to do is the military realized that they hadn't dealt with this type of casualty, being amputees, broken backs, major burns on a large scale since Korea probably. And there wasn't really a lot of programs in place at the time because no one had ever dealt with this in real life before. So they started Soldier On, and the idea was to take wounded and injured and ill soldiers, whether from combat or from just bad luck, and put them into situations where they're going to learn how to live their new normal. Now, the first thing you do when you have your feet blown off is you deny that there's a problem. I told my buddies before I was even on the evacuation aircraft back to Germany and then back to Canada that, don't worry, boys, a year or 2, I'll be back on my whatever feet they get for me, because it's 2007, right? Of course we're going to have robot legs like in Star Wars when Luke has his hand cut off. And we'll be back chasing Taliban around the mountains just like we were yesterday. And so Soldier On is where you meet some mentors as well. So, you know, there's me, of course. I'm the good-looking one in the picture. Right there is Mike. He lost this leg when he stepped on a similar device a few months before me. Behind him is now Dr. So Sir, help me out. Daniel, Dr. Daniel, he was a paratrooper with 3 RCR, broke his back in a jump, used his retraining and went to medical school and is now a doctor in Sudbury. This is Eric. He lost his leg in a motorcycle accident, and he's now a stand-up comedian. It's to be questioned whether how funny he is, but, you know, I think he does pretty good. This is Karen. She lost her leg to cancer, and right in the back here with his head turned away from us is a guy that I look up to very much, is Rick Rickard, who lost his leg when the winch on a tank grabbed his combat pants leg and pulled him into the winch. Now, the hole on a winch on a tank is only about that big, so you can imagine what happened. He lost his whole leg. This was in 1987, and he spent almost 20 years, just about 20 years, being the only guy with no leg in the Army, hiding away in a clerk's position wherever he could find one, no promotions, no courses, and he soldiered on pretty much on his own for 20 years, and he was a big inspiration to me, thinking, how am I supposed to carry on with this injury? But Soldier On took me in, turned me into an ambassador, and showed me that, you know, there's a lot more to life than what I had put on myself and my identity, which was, as a soldier, it's done on your feet. So I had to really think about how I was going to carry on doing things. And it was also around this time, though, that never quit became the mantra I mentioned, because I started saying to myself, no matter what I do, whether I put my because putting on prosthetics when you first get them is very, very painful. But I treated it like my job, because I had sworn an oath to the Queen and to the regiment and to my comrades that I was going to be an effective soldier. So I quickly had to become that effective soldier again. So I treated recovery almost like a course. Army, if they want you to know something, they send you on course. And you come back with that knowledge, and then you spread it amongst your peers. So I treated rehab the same way. I was there to do something for the betterment of my regiment and for myself, because, you know, that's always part of it as well. And I'm not going to quit. Even if putting on the legs hurts so bad I can only walk to the bathroom and back that day, I'm going to do that at least every day. Which led me to running this 5K, which was almost an accident, really. So I'm sitting there in my recovery apartment in Toronto, which is near the hospital, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's the foundation at the hospital, and they say, "Hey, Jody, you're working hard. You're a good guy. Everybody likes you and looks up to you at the hospital. Do you want to help us raise some money for our program at the hospital?" I said, "Sure, why not? What are we doing?" I'm thinking, you know, and they said, "Well, 5-kilometer run." I said, "Sure, no problem." In the Army, I used to do one before breakfast, and I do one after work. And I hang up the phone, and my girlfriend at the time says, "So the whole no feet thing, how are you going to deal with that?" And I had actually kind of forgot that, you know, yeah, how am I going to run 5K? Because part of losing a body part is you kind of forget sometimes. And I had like 3 times where I tried to actually get out of bed in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, forgetting I didn't have legs. And that leads to some scary moments when you have stitches and all that. So I made the call, and I got some prosthetic running legs made. And my prosthetist, though, was so excited, because he's this little New Zealand guy, just full of energy. And he says, "Oh," I do a terrible New Zealand accent, but it was something like, "Oh, it's going to be great, mate, because I've never made 2 at once before." And I was like, "Huh? What do you, like, I'm thinking this is just common. Like, everybody runs that's an amputee, right?" And he's like, No, hardly anybody runs. It's a single leg amputee, never mind a double. So this is going to be really cool." "Oh, okay, well, because, you know, there's no part of the yellow pages that says, 'Oh, yeah, double amputee runners club,' right there." It's a little hard to find some peers in this and people to learn from. So then we called the company that makes them. What's the best way for Jody to set these things up so he can get maximum energy return? And Oser, great company, but their answer was, "Yeah, we just make them." It's up to you guys to figure them out. Okay, so Soldier On, though, was able to hook me up with some amputee runners from Paralympics. And I started training, and I managed to do 5K. It took me about as long as it usually takes me to run 10K when I had feet, so I was a little disappointed in myself there. But over 120 of my comrades showed up. You can see them, all the blue here, and they brought the regimental flag with them, and they brought a huge donation to the hospital, and really was there to support me and got me over the finish line. Because one side effect of having your legs blown off, if you look real close right there, and there, and there, when you're depressed, you might eat a little extra, you might move a little less, and if your condo is right next to Dairy Queen, peanut butter cup blizzards are awesome. And I might have had one for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for some days when I was feeling really blue. And I was a little chubby when I did this, but I managed to get it done and realize in my mind, okay, I can do this. I set this goal. I accomplished it. I didn't quit. And now I got to move on and see what else I can do to show that I'm still useful and still able to carry on. And here's where things get really interesting. So remember that blonde I showed you earlier? Well, this is her. And